I want to do an example like example 4 and 5 on page 71, the difference between of and more than, because it's not a difficult difference, but it is a little bit picky with the wording. So I wanted to just briefly go over that. So if you have two things, let's say I have person A has a salary of 35,000, and we'll just put this in thousands, and person B has a salary of 42,000, and I want to compare those two. So there's different ways I can do it. I could say person B has a salary of a certain percent more than person A, or I might say what percent of person's A salary is person's B, or person B is what percent of A. So it's the difference between the words of and more than. More than is interested in the actual increase. That's what it wants to know. Okay, well, how much did it go up? So when you're making your fraction to determine the percent more than, you would find the actual increase. So that's just a subtraction problem. 42 minus 35. You want to know, well, how much more does B actually make? And they would make 7,000 more, so that's your top number. The bottom number, when you're doing these more than or less than percentages or of percentages, the bottom number is you're always dividing by the original value. Your book calls that the reference value, but that's what it is. It's the original value, or what it started as, or it's the first person that you mentioned. So in this case, I mentioned person A first, so they would be the original value or the reference value. So their salary is 35, so that's the bottom number. 7 divided by 35 actually reduces to 1/5, and so that's 0.2. You would do that in your calculator. 7 divided by 35, oops, that looks like plus, but that's because my pen dragged. 7 divided by 35, 0.2. You have to convert that to a percent. When you're converting decimals to a percent, move it 2 places. It comes to rest. If you have a gap, you fill it in with a 0. So that would be 20%. So the way to describe that would be person B makes 20% more than person A. Now another way I might want to report that is I might want to know what percent of the first person's income does the second one make. So in that situation, my top number is just what's the new value or the second person. New or second. And then the bottom one, we're always dividing by the original or the first value. Again, that's what your book calls reference value. So if I want to know what percent of the first value of person B has, person B would go on top because that's the second person or the new person. The original value was 35. Those are your two numbers. You divide those in your calculator. You get 1.2. And then when you convert that to a decimal, move the decimal 2 places. If you have a gap, fill it in with a 0. That would be 120%. So person B makes 120% of what person A makes. So that's the difference between of and more than. Again, in more than, you're interested in the increase. What percent of the original is the increase? In of, you're interested in how the two compare, the second one over the first one.